What if I told you the reason you can't lose belly fat isn't because you're lazy, but because almost everyone is making the same mistakes? You've probably tried diets, workouts, and calorie counting, but why do most people still fail? By the end of this video, you'll finally understand the 5 steps to lose belly fat for good and why skipping even one of them could keep you stuck forever. Hello health champions, I'm Dr. Nana, and today on Senior Health Boost, we're going to break this down so it's crystal clear. Most people only follow 1 or 2 steps when trying to lose belly fat, but very few ever apply all 5. That's the real reason so many struggle and give up. But if you stay with me through this video, you'll see exactly how to do it and more importantly, how to make results last. Let's begin with step 1, understanding the key issues behind fat loss and not falling for the myths that keep circulating. For example, have you ever noticed how the very word diet sets you up for failure? A diet, by definition, means doing something for a short period of time. You push yourself, restrict yourself, and maybe you lose a little weight. But then what? The diet ends, and you go back to doing the same things that created the problem in the first place. That's why I tell my patients never go on a diet again. Any change you make should become part of your lifestyle, something sustainable you can maintain for the rest of your life. Now let's address the law of thermodynamics. You've heard it 1,000 times. Calories in, calories out. Sounds simple, right? The idea is, if you eat fewer calories than you burn, you'll lose weight. But here's the problem, it doesn't actually work that way in real life. Yes, the math seems convincing. If you eat 2,000 calories a day and maintain a steady weight, then adding an extra hour of exercise burning 500 calories a day should make you lose a pound a week. Over 200 weeks, that's nearly for years you'd lose 200 pounds. Congratulations, you'd weigh 0. Obviously, that's absurd. You don't just disappear because you exercised more. Something else happens along the way. So, does that mean the law of thermodynamics is wrong? Of course not. What it means is we've been misled about how our bodies actually use energy. Calories out isn't just about exercise. It also includes your basal metabolic rate BMR, the energy your body uses at rest just to keep you alive. Your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your organs, they all burn calories even when you're sitting still. That's your baseline. Then, on top of that, you add movement and exercise. Together, those make up your total calories out. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let's say you increase your exercise by 500 calories a day. Does your body just let you lose weight endlessly? No. Your metabolism adapts. Your BMR will slow down to compensate. In other words, as you burn more, your body learns to save more. And that's not just possible, it's inevitable. That's why people plateau, why they stop losing weight, even when they're doing everything right. Your body is intelligent. At the cellular level, it constantly perceives your environment and adapts. When you cut calories or ramp up exercise, your cells sense it. They adjust hormones, slow metabolism, and change hunger signals, all to protect you from what your body believes is starvation. And this brings us to the real reason most people fail. It's not about willpower, it's about biology. If you want lasting fat loss, you need to work with your body's design, not against it. So, now that we've exposed why diets fail and why calories in versus calories out is misleading, it's time to move into the next big question. What exactly happens when you change your food choices, especially something as common as bread? That's where we'll pick up in the next part. In the last section, we talked about how your body is far more intelligent than most diet plans give it credit for. You can't just burn an extra 500 calories with exercise and expect everything else to remain the same. Your body adapts, it always does. And that adaptation is what makes fat loss so tricky. Now, let's take this one step further. When your body senses that it's using more energy than it's taking in, it interprets this as a shortage, a state of lack. Imagine your cells saying, "Wait a second, I used to get plenty of fuel, but now more energy is being spent. Something's missing." In response, your body lowers your basal metabolic rate, the energy you burn at rest. This is its survival strategy, and it's why the simple calories in versus calories out model falls apart so quickly. But here's a question many people ask. If I'm carrying around tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of calories worth of stored energy and body fat, why does my body still feel like it's starving? That seems illogical, right? You'd think your body would tap into that stored fuel. And yet, for many people, it doesn't. The answer lies in hormones, the powerful chemical messengers that dictate how we use, store, and release energy. Different foods stimulate different hormones, and some of these hormones make it incredibly difficult to access your stored fat. In other words, even though you're carrying around a fortune in energy reserves, your body acts as if the vault is locked shut. You can't see that fuel, so you continue to feel deprived. And here's something else that complicates things: comparing yourself to other people. You've probably seen it before. Someone comments, "I just cut out sugar," or "I just started exercising an hour a day," and they got dramatic results. Then they insist it's all about calories in and calories out, and anyone who can't replicate their results must be lazy or undisciplined. But that's simply not true. Why? Because genetics, metabolism, and insulin sensitivity vary widely from person to person. Some people are naturally more insulin sensitive, meaning their bodies can handle glucose efficiently. For them, making just one change like reducing sugar or increasing exercise can yield noticeable results. But someone else, perhaps more insulin resistant, could make the exact same change and see almost nothing. These two people aren't even in the same category, so comparing them is pointless. That's why, as Dr. Nana always emphasizes, you must approach fat loss individually. This is about your body, your hormones, your metabolism, not anyone else's. So don't judge yourself based on another person's journey, and don't judge others for not responding the way you did. Now let's zoom in on one hormone in particular, the one at the center of this entire conversation: insulin. You may hear about insulin all the time, usually in connection with insulin resistance, diabetes, and weight gain. And you might wonder, if insulin causes so many problems, why do we even have it at all? The truth is, insulin is absolutely vital. Without it, you wouldn't survive. Think about people with type 1 diabetes who can't produce insulin. Just 100 years ago, before synthetic insulin was available, type 1 diabetics would almost always die within weeks or months of diagnosis. Why? Because without insulin, the glucose from food stays trapped in the bloodstream. You can eat as much as you want, but unless insulin escorts that glucose into the cell, your body can't use it for energy. It's like having a fridge full of food but no way to open the door. But insulin's role doesn't stop there. It's also an anabolic hormone, meaning it builds and stores. Think of it as the builder in your body. It helps create new tissue, maintain muscle, and yes, store fat. On the flip side, catabolic processes break down tissue and burn energy. Both are necessary, but when insulin levels stay elevated too often, the building and storing side takes over, and the burning and releasing side is shut down. That's why chronically high insulin is such a problem. Not only does it encourage fat storage, but it also prevents you from accessing the fat you've already stored. And what happens when your body can't access its fuel? You feel hungry, desperately hungry. It's as if your body is screaming for energy, even though you're carrying plenty of it around. Now imagine two people exercising side by side. One is insulin sensitive. Their body willingly taps into stored energy. The other is insulin resistant. Their body resists burning stored fat. For the insulin-sensitive person, hunger after exercise is mild, manageable. For the insulin-resistant person, hunger hits like a tidal wave. They may be 10 times hungrier after the same workout. This explains why some people can handle a strict diet or exercise routine fairly easily, while others find it almost unbearable. It's not just willpower. It's biology. It's hormones. It's insulin. And there's more. Chronically high insulin doesn't just increase hunger, it also lowers your basal metabolic rate. In other words, it slows down how many calories you burn at rest. The higher your insulin resistance, the harder it becomes to lose fat, because your body clings to every calorie and fights against letting go. So how does food play into all of this? Different macronutrients trigger insulin differently. If you eat pure fat, insulin barely budges, it's almost unmeasurable. Eat protein, and insulin rises moderately. But eat carbohydrates, especially refined ones, and insulin spikes dramatically. This is the key to understanding why some people feel trapped in a cycle of eating, hunger, fatigue, and fat gain, while others, those with lower insulin, don't. And this leads us straight into the next step of our journey, looking deeper into how specific foods, especially carbohydrates, affect insulin, metabolism, and ultimately whether your body burns fat or stores it. When we left off, we were diving into the power of insulin and how dramatically different foods can influence it. Now let's make this crystal clear. When you eat carbohydrates, your insulin response is many times greater than with either protein or fat. So here's a simple question. If your goal is to lower insulin, which food group should you cut back on first? Fat, protein, or carbohydrates? The answer is obvious: carbohydrates. It's a no-brainer. If carbs drive the biggest insulin spikes, then reducing carbs is the first and most effective step toward lowering insulin. And yet, this truth remains buried under conventional nutrition advice. Mainstream dietary guidelines still encourage people to eat low-fat diets loaded with grains and carbohydrates. Isn't that strange? Let's break it down visually. Imagine you eat a carb-heavy meal. Your blood sugar spikes quickly. Insulin, trying to keep up, rises as well, just slightly delayed. By the time blood glucose hits its peak, insulin is also surging, forcing that sugar down. But insulin lingers. It doesn't fall right away, it sticks around in your bloodstream even after the glucose has already dropped. Now compare that to a low-carb meal. The response looks totally different. Instead of an explosive, gasoline on a fire surge of energy, it's more like tossing a slow-burning log into the flames. The energy is released steadily, gradually, over time. Blood sugar rises gently. Insulin rises too, but only modestly. No wild spikes. No crashing drops. But the story doesn't stop with carbs versus protein and fat. Let's talk about meal timing, something you've probably heard of as intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. Here's how it works. If you eat frequent high-carb meals throughout the day, your blood sugar keeps spiking over and over again. Insulin tries to follow, but remember, it always lags a little behind. So just as it begins to come down, another surge of sugar hits. Then another, and another. Over time, these constant toppings off push your baseline insulin level higher and higher. Think about that. Every snack, every carb-heavy meal, every healthy whole grain breakfast keeps your insulin elevated. And while 1 or 2 days of feasting might not matter, what happens when every day looks like a feast? Over months and years, insulin never gets the chance to return to baseline. The result? Chronically high insulin, creeping insulin resistance, and eventually the cascade of problems we associate with metabolic disease. Now, picture a different approach. You eat lower carb meals that combine protein and healthy fats. Your energy release is steady, not spiking. You stay satisfied longer, so you don't need to snack as often. Maybe you finish dinner, then skip eating again until later the next morning. This gives your body a long stretch of time where insulin can finally drop all the way back to baseline. And here's where the magic happens. When insulin has room to fall, it doesn't just reset, it helps reverse the trend of rising insulin resistance. Extended fasting windows paired with low-carb eating allow your body to reclaim balance, to actually burn stored fat instead of constantly storing more. Of course, people often ask about little tricks they've heard, like apple cider vinegar, lemon water, cinnamon, or certain herbs. Do they help? Yes, research shows they can have small positive effects on stabilizing blood sugar and lowering insulin. But here's the truth. These are finishing touches, not foundations. You can't rely on them alone. 95% of your results will come from cutting carbs and adopting time-restricted eating. Add the little hacks later if you want, but don't fool yourself into thinking they're substitutes for real lifestyle change. Now let's shift to something everyone associates with weight loss: exercise. Most people think of exercise purely as a calorie-burning tool. The old equation goes, eat a cookie, then spend 30 minutes on the treadmill to burn it off. But that's not how the human body works, not even close. As we saw earlier, the math doesn't add up, and your body adapts in ways that make this approach ineffective. So if exercise isn't about burning off food, what role does it really play in losing belly fat and lowering insulin? That's exactly where we're headed next. In the last section, we uncovered how food choices and timing drive insulin. But now, let's talk about another piece of the puzzle: exercise. Most people assume exercise is the #1 key to burning belly fat. They're told again and again, if you want to lose weight, you have to hit the gym hard. But here's the truth: it's not the primary mechanism. Exercise is absolutely important, yes, but for reasons very different than most people think. You see, movement powers the brain, and the brain runs everything. Every single cell in your body depends on the brain's ability to coordinate, to manage resources, and to reduce stress. That's the real magic of exercise. It sharpens the communication network that connects body and mind. But if we're specifically talking about fat loss, exercise plays a supportive role, not the starring one. Here's why. Imagine you sit down and eat a meal containing 100 grams of carbohydrate. That carbohydrate quickly breaks down into glucose and enters your bloodstream. To get that glucose into your tissues, insulin steps in. Almost every tissue in your body needs insulin to absorb glucose, but two are especially important for our discussion: muscles and the liver. The liver stores glucose as glycogen. Muscles can also store glycogen, and in fact, after a meal, your muscles are usually the biggest sponges for glucose. But here's the crucial point at rest. Glucose always needs insulin to get into those tissues. Now, picture what happens when you're exercising. The moment your muscles start contracting, they change the rules. A working muscle can pull glucose out of the bloodstream without insulin, or with very little insulin at all. Think of it like a vacuum. Active muscles literally suck glucose into themselves, lowering blood sugar naturally. So let's go back to our example. Out of that 100 grams of carbohydrate, say 50 goes to the liver and 50 goes to the muscles. If you're sitting still, both require insulin. But if you're exercising, only the liver's 50 needs insulin. The muscle's 50 gets taken care of almost automatically. The result? Your body needs half as much insulin for the same meal. That's how exercise helps improve insulin sensitivity, not by burning off the food, but by lowering the insulin demand. But here's the catch. While muscle activity can soak up glucose, it can't reach inside your liver and pull out fat. That's why exercise alone isn't enough. If your liver is insulin resistant or fatty, no amount of crunches or cardio will fix that. The real solution lies in diet changes and intermittent fasting, which give the liver time to burn stored fat and recover its sensitivity to insulin. And speaking of crunches, let's clear up a huge myth. If you search online for exercises to burn belly fat, you'll see endless routines full of crunches, sit-ups, and AB workouts. But do these actually shrink belly fat? Not really. Here's why. Crunches target a very small muscle group. They use up only a tiny bit of glucose. They do not tap directly into the fat sitting on top of your abs. There is no secret pipeline from the fat cells in your belly straight into the muscles beneath them. Just because they're neighbors doesn't mean they share resources. So, while crunches can absolutely improve core strength and stability, they won't be the magic bullet for burning belly fat. That requires a combination of lowering insulin through smarter eating and engaging larger muscle groups through movement that really challenges your body. Now that we've dismantled the myths about exercise, you might be wondering, if crunches aren't the answer, then what type of exercise actually supports fat loss the most? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next section. In the last section, we saw how exercise, especially resistance training and steady aerobic movement, works with your metabolism in ways most people never think about. But now, we need to dive into something even more powerful and often overlooked: stress. Most people think stress is just about feeling anxious, busy, or overwhelmed. But physiologically, stress is far more than an emotion. It's a biological chain reaction that directly affects whether you burn fat or store it. Imagine this. You're sitting comfortably, relaxed, burning mostly fat for energy. Suddenly, something threatens you: a loud noise, a near-car accident, or even a harsh email. Instantly, your nervous system flips into fight or flight mode. Your body doesn't know the difference between a predator chasing you and a stressful meeting. It just reacts. And its first move? Release cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. What does cortisol do? It raises blood sugar. Why? Because glucose is a fast emergency fuel. If your body believes you need to fight or run, it floods your system with quick energy so you can survive. For short bursts, this is life-saving. But here's the problem. In today's world, most of us aren't running from predators. We're sitting at desks, commuting, or scrolling on phones. The stress response stays on long after the threat has passed. When cortisol is chronically elevated, it sets off a domino effect. Your body not only keeps raising blood sugar, it also increases cravings, especially for quick fixes like sugar and refined carbs. Why? Because your body is convinced it needs more glucose to fuel that constant fight or flight state. But with more cravings come higher insulin spikes. Over time, this constant loop leads to insulin resistance, making it harder and harder for your body to burn fat. Now, here's the kicker. Stress doesn't just cause fat gain, it determines where that fat is stored. And research shows cortisol specifically drives fat storage in the torso, from the hips up through the belly and even the upper body. That's why chronic stress is often linked to stubborn belly fat, even in people who eat relatively well and exercise. This isn't just theory. A study published in PubMed revealed a strong relationship between the body's stress response system, the hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis, and the way your body regulates energy. Put simply, the brain senses stress, signals the adrenal glands, and those glands pump out cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones then reshape your metabolism, alter fat storage, and even shift your behavior toward cravings and fatigue. So when people focus only on diet and exercise while ignoring stress, they're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. You can eat clean and work out daily, but if cortisol stays high, your body is still being told to hoard fat, especially in the belly. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how during particularly stressful times, work deadlines, family conflicts, financial worries, you gain fat in your midsection, even if your diet hasn't changed much? That's cortisol at work, quietly but powerfully reshaping your body. And here's another layer. Cortisol doesn't just increase cravings, it also messes with your hunger and satiety hormones. That's why stress eating feels so uncontrollable. It's not about weak willpower. It's a biological response. Your body is literally pushing you to eat more sugar because it believes it's in danger and needs fast energy. Now, is stress always bad? No, short-term stress can be motivating. It sharpens focus and gives you quick energy when you truly need it. But when it becomes the default baseline, when you're living in stress mode every single day, it turns from helpful to harmful. That's why belly fat is often called stress fat. And unless you address cortisol, no amount of crunches, calorie counting, or low-fat diets will make it go away. So, what can you do about it? How do you start calming your body's stress signals so cortisol stops sabotaging your health? That's exactly where we'll go next. Simple, practical strategies to manage stress, balance your hormones, and finally give your body the chance to burn fat the way it's designed to. We've talked about diet, metabolism, exercise, and stress. Now, let's bring it all together with one of the most overlooked but most powerful truths about health: balance. Stress doesn't just change how we feel, it literally changes the body's priorities. That's why research consistently shows that patients with abdominal obesity almost always have elevated cortisol levels. It's not simply about calories. It's about hormones, stress responses, and how our nervous system interprets the world around us. And it gets even more fascinating. Studies show that stress hormones like cortisol, also called glucocorticoids, don't just influence blood sugar. They also shape behavior. They affect how much energy you use, and perhaps most importantly, they affect what foods you crave. Have you ever noticed how, under stress, you don't crave broccoli or salmon? Instead, you want comfort foods: sweet, salty, fatty, processed snacks. Science confirms it. Chronic stress increases cravings for foods enriched with sugar and fat. In other words, stress literally programs you to reach for junk food. And the more often you give in, the stronger the cycle becomes. But here's the key. Stress isn't in the world around you. Events happen, yes, but stress is your body's response to those events. And responses can be retrained. Your nervous system can be reconditioned, just like a muscle. Take something as simple as breathing exercises. When you breathe in deeply, you activate the fight or flight branch of your nervous system. But when you breathe out slowly, you switch on the calming, parasympathetic branch, the rest and digest response. Done regularly, this isn't just a 5-minute trick. It becomes a skill you build into your nervous system, helping you stay calmer all day long. Then there's mindfulness. It's not just a buzzword. It's the practice of noticing how you feel in the moment while driving through traffic, waiting in line, or sitting at your desk. Ask yourself, how am I feeling? Can I shift my focus? Can I respond differently? That small awareness opens the door to real change. Meditation is another powerful tool. Think of it as giving your brain a break from its endless chatter. Guided meditations, calming music, or even a few minutes of silence can train your mind to reset, reducing the constant hum of stress. And don't forget exercise itself. Beyond burning calories, movement stimulates the brain, helps regulate mood, and improves your body's ability to handle stress. When your brain functions better, your entire stress response improves. One more crucial pillar: sleep. Even a single night of poor sleep raises cortisol levels the next morning. It also makes you more insulin resistant, hungrier, and more likely to crave sugar. Many people struggle with sleep, But here's the encouraging part: breathing, mindfulness, exercise, and meditation all help calm the nervous system and restore healthy sleep patterns. So, where does this all lead? To the final piece, a holistic lifestyle. Now, don't get caught up in thinking holistic means mystical rituals, crystals, or incense. At its core, holistic simply means looking at the whole picture. Your health is supported by three pillars, what some call the triad of health. 1. Chemical nutrition and toxins, supplying your body with the nutrients it needs consistently, while avoiding harmful substances that disrupt your biochemistry. That means focusing on whole foods, quality proteins, healthy fats, and cutting out the chemical-laden junk that bogs your system down. 2. Structural movement and posture. Keeping the body moving, maintaining proper posture, and avoiding the sedentary patterns that weaken signals between your nervous system and your muscles. Movement is not optional, it's communication with your body. 3. Emotional stress mindset and nervous system, recognizing that emotions and stress responses are just as real and just as impactful as diet or exercise. The way you think, the way you breathe, and the way you respond to life's challenges directly influence your hormones, your fat storage, and your long-term health. Think of it like a three-legged table. If one leg is weak or missing, the whole table wobbles. But when all three are balanced, nutrition, structure, and stress, you build a foundation for true, lasting health. This is why focusing only on calories, or only on crunches, or only on meditation will never be enough. Your body needs all three legs working together. And when you commit to that, something incredible happens. Not only do you lose stubborn belly fat, you gain energy, focus, happiness, and a sense of control over your health that you may not have felt in years. And here's the beautiful irony. Once you start feeling truly good, calm, strong, energized, that becomes your new normal. Health no longer feels like a chore. It becomes the natural byproduct of living in balance. So let me leave you with this. Health isn't about deprivation or punishment. It's about building a lifestyle where your body and mind thrive together. That's the real secret to losing belly fat and keeping it off, not for a month, not for a year, but for life. If this video spoke to you, I invite you to take action right now. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe to Senior Health Boost. Turn on all notifications so you never miss another life-changing video. Because here at Senior Health Boost, it's not just about trimming inches, it's about reclaiming your health, your energy, and your future. And that's something worth sticking around for.